All right, in a world where AI will solve for most technical questions, what kind of human skills will triumph? When it comes to AI world, we often look at jobs and careers, right? Will it take away our jobs? Will it destroy our jobs or redefine our jobs? But let's also shift focus today on education and the impact. What will the classrooms of the future really look like? Will there be exams or no exams or perhaps open book exams? What will be assessments like? What will they be based on? When AI has all the answers, what will be the role of teachers? Today on the program, we attempt to answer all these very fascinating questions.
Right at this intersection of artificial intelligence and education is not just a future full of possibility. This change is imminent. The traditional factory model of schooling that we've seen that is designed typically to churn out workers for a very, very rigid system, we know already, we talk about how it is outdated. But what's going to replace it? The focus is shifting from memorizing facts, for example, chasing grades, to fostering curiosity, passion and purpose. Tech-driven learning, approaches like Google's Genius Hour, we'll tell you about that later, they're all becoming essential to help students engage with content in different meaningful ways. All about the focus is unlocking creativity and problem-solving skills rather than forcing control and a limited sense of initiative from students. Skills like empathy are in focus, collaboration, resilience. These are hopefully going to be the key in this new world.
So we often hear about all of this, right? But we don't know what the application will be. आखिर बच्चे पढ़ेंगे क्या? How importantly? Well, joining us today is our two people who are very futuristic in their mindset and perhaps have these answers for us. First up, we've got Leena Usher, who's the founder for Dreamtime Learning and also was the one who started Kangaroo Kids. Also with us is Gautam Rajgaria. He's the promoter and chairman of Delhi Public School. He's got branches in Varanasi, Nasik, Nagpur, Pune and all of that. So they'll be sharing lots of insights. So that's good morning, both of you. Thank you so much for joining us at the so-called school hour, as they say. But this is the time where we try and school parents and try and understand what the future really will look like for their kids. Leena, let me begin with you. There was a very famous line in one of the movies that came out very recently, and also I remember interviewing the man responsible for Super 30, who said that no one examination can really determine the life of a student. More and more focus today as we move towards an AI-driven world is on exams, the relevance of exams, and then open book exams. Could you talk to us a little more about what will determine a child's worth then?
So if we look very quickly at schooling should reflect what's going on outside the school in the real world, and what opportunities the real world has in terms of jobs, skills that kids will need, etc., etc. And you look at, we've had a history of kids stealing papers because there's always been so much pressure around exams. And we then think about what is the true essence of why a child needs to be assessed and what are the parameters of assessment. And all these have changed. 20 years ago when I started Kangaroo Kids, or 35 years ago when I started Kangaroo Kids, and then Billabong High, parents used to put an emphasis on spelling. And I used to say, look, there are going to be tools very soon around the future, like we've got a calculator, where you don't need the kids to master their spelling. But they do need to master language. They do need to master language usage. They need to be able to be you're expressive, but not necessarily only by writing. Now today that's gone 10 steps ahead, right? We can actually speak. You don't have to write. You can speak into a and there's a text to a voice to text speech that occurs for you, complete with punctuations and everything else. So then it bodes the question: should we be teaching for grammar, spelling, and put so much of a focus on writing in conventional schooling or not? So I'm saying if we do very simple things, it'll force the whole education community to change what they're doing. And it also then, because only when that happens will parents start looking at things differently. Parents don't know. Parents are looking at, okay, what's the school demanding of me? And therefore, how do I meet it? and that's where their pressure and stress and pressure comes from. But if in our offices, in the real world, if we are using access to information as and when we need it to solve a problem, to create something, to do something, why don't we do that for kids? So if you look at, there's a theorist called Bloom's, and he built this thing called Bloom's taxonomy of needs, where memorization and understanding were at the lowest end of what it gives your brain highest stress, but it actually is the lowest level of functioning for a brain. And at the highest end, evaluation, analysis, synthesis. And by synthesis, it's very, very clear that we're in the creator economy. That's where we've got to focus, that kids can learn anything, but what new value do they create from what they've learned? So just to give you a very example of what a school can do.
Okay.
It doesn't change everything, does not change the textbook. You're learning about, yesterday was Gandhi Jayanti. So
Right.
we're learning about the Salt March in schools, right? Now, a very simple way to do this is to say, okay, Gandhi ji lives in the world of today with the tools and technology that he has today. Now you have to recreate what a Salt March will look like. How will he communicate it? How will he build awareness? How will he get people to follow him? Now, it's not as though kids don't need to know the history of what happened at once upon a time. They don't need to know what his objective was or what the reason why he was doing the Salt March. Because for them to be able to communicate that on Twitter or X now, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and not only that, they're learning that these different platforms use different styles of language to communicate.
Leena, hold on. You've said a lot of things. You've said a lot of
But
things. Let's hold on.
I do love that though.
open it up
Gandhi
and
in the
let's
digital
bring
age
in
almost.
Gautam as well. Yeah.
Okay, let's just go over to Gautam then. We did right now talk about Gandhi in the digital age. We'll almost keep the question there. Gautam, I want to ask you, during COVID, we saw tech enter into classrooms in a huge way, and there was a big conversation around the pros and the cons of tech entering the classroom. Here on TBC also, we've had those discussions, the different perspectives parents have, students have to what that did to learning. But I want to understand from you, how can the classroom of the future embrace tech, have a tech-driven education in a positive way? What does that actually look like?
Can't hear you, Gautam.
So when COVID happened, we all rushed into getting into the tech into the classroom, but really the tech at that time, when we brought that into the classrooms, wasn't really designed in a way where immersive learning could actually happen inside the classroom. But it's been 4 years since then, and things have changed drastically. Today, when you talk about adaptive learning, when you do gamification, when you play a video game, really what happens is that the video game really adjusts to your level and keeps the child really engaged because it understands what the level of the child is. Whether if you give a child too much of a challenge, he'll get disinterested. If you make it too easy, the child will again move out of the game, right? So you have to keep the level of the child interested. So adaptive learning is one of the things that can happen through tech, which is happening now with 4 years of innovation in technology into the classrooms. You can personalize education really to every single child in that classroom. That's number one. Number two, using tech, you can really gamify things. You can give rewards, you can give immediate feedbacks. Children really love to get immediate feedback. Gone are the days when you had a lengthy answer written and after 15 days you get to know how you did in your examination. That just takes the fun out of learning. Here you are learning on the go. You know exactly where you made a mistake. You know why you made that mistake, and it will pick out what concept you did not understand because of which you made that mistake. Now imagine what that does to an individual. As adults, we love to get feedback immediately to be able to improvise on that. Now for this show, if you get a feedback next year, would it make any sense to you? No. That's what we've been doing for our students year and year again. And here we are, where we are using tech to reduce cognitive load. Imagine us, we were sitting in classrooms back in our day, 40-minute long lectures. The attention span has gone to less than 6 minutes. How do we keep our children in a lecture for 40 minutes? It's impossible. The cognitive overload is just overwhelming. right? And then you are confined into a desk and a chair, and you're expected to do this for entire 8 hours or 6 hours in a day,
Right.
right? So going forward,
Right.
the
Right.
future classrooms will really look like open spaces where learning is in a state of flow, where you are learning with your environment, with your peers, through tech, and to your level of understanding.
Okay.
Okay, so let me go off script at this point a little bit because we've covered a lot of points over here. And Leena, I want to get your perspective here. So everything that you and Gautam are speaking about makes so much sense. Almost wants me to sort of go back to the classroom in this era where you could experience it. It was more personalized. It was more tech driven. I wasn't just mugging up my, formulas, but I actually understood the application of it in my life as well. But how open is the Indian education system for something like this? An education system which has been thriving all over the world for all its merits, but now to come and say that, listen, hold on. Being a topper, being an IIT topper, being an AIEEE topper, or, getting the highest marks or highest percentile does not guarantee much.
So I think change comes from within. It's difficult to tell policymakers to make change when they're not at ground zero. We're at ground zero and we see, as educators, we see what's going on in the world. We travel overseas and we see how AI is doing more and more and more, and what that's going to mean for kids. If AIs can spot tax errors better than an accountant, if AIs can draft legal drafts better than a lawyer, and if they can diagnose cancer better than a doctor, then what is the role of these people in this in the world? And then it goes to the human only skills. So actually, from going into coding, into rushing into all these logical kind of things, we're coming back human intuition. We're coming back to human creativity. We're coming back to human empathy and how that's going to work. Now, the change will happen in two ways. One is educators like us will create the change from within. The outside forces, economy, etc., CEOs saying, hey, these kids are not ready for us. Universities saying, hey, these kids are not ready for us. So that will also so there'll be a two-force change in which then government and schools will have to have a look at what is the future context of the world and how do we do it. I mean, let me tell you something though. I'm an Australian. I travel to Australia and then I'm in India. The things that we do in India that are tech enabled are so far superior than anything we're doing in a lot of the Western countries. So I do think the government's open to all of this and seeing that these things are there, and so we do have new education policies, etc., that give us the basis for change. And then it's for people like us who actually do the neuroscience, the behavioral science, who do the research to then start doing the change and to helping others do the change.
Let me ask, Gautam, let me ask you this then. All of the change we're talking about right now, how do we actually implement it? In India, you have great diversity in socio-economic status in different schools. Often you have limited technical capabilities and facilities. And we've talked a little bit about, making tech-forward classrooms. But that can be something that's quite handicapped in schools in, for example, I would imagine rural areas. How can this be made a reality across the country over the years? How do you foster even a temperament in a student, a collaborative temperament over a competitive temperament when that's something that's been hammered in over the years? How do you actually make sure these changes trickle down?
So, conventionally speaking, we have always been a very competitive country where IITs has been, or AIIMS examinations have been at the center of everything. Everybody is striving for these competitive examinations. But really, tech is the way forward to break this divide where rural, city children and international children all collaborate together to work in one setting. Now, with using tech backgrounds, coming on the same platform, having a device to every child is the way forward for our country, where we talk about Viksit Bharat. To be able to bring rural students or children from socioeconomic backgrounds which are not at the same level as urban children, you will have to have devices in every child's hand. And today, I think to a large extent, devices are there in every household, but it's just not that devices are there in everybody's hands. So the government really needs to work in that direction to be able to give a device to every child. The moment you give a device to every child, there is abundant opportunity for every child to learn. Learning is not very expensive in today's time and age. You know, there is so much, if you have the right intention, you really can learn anything that you want to do. And we have seen so many entrepreneurs, so many successful people, so many business people who have learned it all on their own without going to a formal school. So learning is possible. The intention has to be
But
there.
Gautam, can I interject and say this then? That giving a device in every kid's hand sounds like a scary,
Yeah, I was
scary
gonna say it sounds quite
possibility.
dangerous.
Knowing how kids' brain work and how they navigate and
the
all the
reality-
khurafats which is there in their head, it's a tricky situation. I know Leena's nodding and wants to come in, but I have a slightly different question, Leena, for you. That I understand that change will trickle down from the top, meaning we are currently in a situation where you have a lot of IITians who've not got jobs. The best of the institutes in the country are now facing the reality that perhaps they know a lot of good stuff, but they are perhaps not market ready just yet. A lot of companies are saying it. And that will perhaps, trickle a change in curriculum at the university level and then at the school level, and that's how it happens. But we are still in India a system of boards. There is CBSE, ICSE, IB, IGCSE. In a situation like this personalized setup, how does it go?
So I think if you look at that, we only have a few jobs. As teachers, our jobs are not to be content masters anymore. Our job is one, if we're teaching a concept, how do we hook the child's brain by making them curious about what that topic is? And that can be done by touching an emotional chord, by making it highly relevant and relatable to their world. And so that's our first job as teachers. The second job is to make it exciting and engaging. So you just craft the learning experience. So it's done in a way that kids see how when they put all these bits together, they're going to create something wonderful and magnificently different. Up to grade 8, we've got autonomy over what we want to do. And autonomy and agency is not really, it's important for everyone. For husbands and wives, it's important for educators, it's important for kids. So we've got that agency and autonomy up to year 8. So now we're only talking about 9 and 10. I am saying with a lot of conviction and confidence that in 5 years, our board exams will not look anything like that, like they are today. We will have portfolios of learning that kids take to universities for entrance, and that kids will carry with them as as what they're doing. We're actually talking to someone right now who's built an alternative university inside the Wipro campus. Right, so you'll see more of these. You'll have specialized universities.
We are unfortunately running out of time, and it's unfortunate because this is right as you were touching on a very, very exciting aspect here. How different exams can look in the future. Just a few years from now, we might be looking at something like portfolios that would entirely change. And this is interesting because this is how we started this.
No
how
board
do you
exams,
change? Right. That would be revolutionary for all of us who've sat through board exams over the years.